In the influencer era, your relationship is part of your portfolio, not just your highlight, not just your stats, your relationship, who you date, how you behave in public, how you argue, how you reconcile. All of it is now part of the economic ecosystem that surrounds modern athletes. Because in today's sports economy, love is no longer just personal, it's marketable. For decades, athletes built brands around performance. Points per game, championship rings, Olympic medals. But the digital media era changed the equation. Fans no longer follow athletes just for the competition. They follow the story, the behind the scenes, the off-court life, the romance. And when two public figures fall in love, something new is created, a sports power couple. A power couple isn't just two successful individuals. It's a combined economic engine, two audiences, two endorsement portfolios, two personal brands, merged into one amplified narrative. And when it works, the rewards are enormous. Joint sponsorship, cross-platform marketing deals, reality television, podcast empires, fashion collaborations. Love becomes leverage, but leverage always carries risk. Because when the relationship becomes part of the brand, conflict becomes part of the business model. Arguments become headlines, breakups become content. And when turmoil enters the picture, especially allegations of domestic conflict, the consequences can ripple far beyond the couples themselves. Sponsors panic, leagues distance themselves, media narratives harden. And what once looked like a marketing dream can quickly become a public relations crisis. This is the fragile reality of the influencer athlete era. Your private life isn't private. Your romance isn't just romance. It's brand architect. And when that architect cracks, the financial damage can spread across an entire ecosystem. So tonight on PoliSports Tea Leaves, we're examining a question that modern sports media still struggles to confront directly. What happens when the emotional volatility of relationship collides with the economic machinery of sports branding? Who absorbs the fallout? Who protects the brand? And who ultimately pays the price when love becomes a liability? Because in the influencer era, relationships aren't just about love, they're about leverage. And when leverage turns into a liability, the tea leaves start telling a very different story. We are living in a cultural moment where relationships are no longer just relationships. They're content, they're commentary, and sometimes they're controversy. Scroll through the sports media today and you'll see the pattern. Breakups trend like playoff games. Body language from the sideline, interaction becomes a viral debate. Fan freeze frames at a glance, a hug, a lack of a hug. And suddenly the internet has built an entire relationship narrative. And here's the real shift. The audience is no longer just watching the sport, they're watching the relationship. In the influencer era, athletes don't just perform on the court or on the field. They perform inside a 24-hour media ecosystem where every personal interaction becomes part of the public storyline. A date night photo becomes engagement content. A courtside appearance becomes brand promotion. A disagreement becomes internet speculation. And slowly, almost without anyone formally announcing it, something else happens. Your partner becomes part of your professional infrastructure. Your partner becomes content. Their presence feeds the algorithm. Fans invest emotionally in the relationship. Engagement numbers spike. Clicks go up. And media outlets happily amplify the narrative. But that's only the first layer. Because your partner also becomes public relation leverage. When two high-profile people build a relationship in public, brands see opportunity. Two audience merge, two demographics combine, two marketing pipelines intersect. Suddenly, the couple isn't just romantic, they're marketable. Sponsors love stability. They love aspirational storytelling. They love the image of success, partnership, and lifestyle branding all wrapped into one package. But that same visibility that creates opportunity also creates exposure, and exposure creates risk. Because once the relationship becomes part of your brand ecosystem, your partner also becomes risk exposure. If conflict surfaces publicly, if allegations emerge, if the relationship becomes turbulent, the fallout doesn't just stay between the two people. It spreads across the brand network. Sponsors reassess, leagues issue statements, fans divide into camps, and the media machine begins asking a different question entirely. Not just what happened, but who becomes the liability. Because in modern sports capitalism, relationships don't just generate attention, they generate economic stake. And when emotions collide with business interests, the tea leaf starts revealing who controls the narrative and who absorbs the damage. One of the quiet truths about the modern sports economy is this: brands don't just invest in talent, they invest in image stability. Athletes sign endorsement deals because they are exceptional competitors, but companies partner with them because they are predictable public figures, predictable behavior, and predictable messaging, predictable brand alignment. That's why the rise of the sports power couple became so attractive to marketers. It creates a story that sponsors understand: immediate success, ambition, partnership, lifestyle. Athletes alone represent performance, but couples represent aspiration. They sell the ideal of a life fans imagine for themselves: winning on the court, winning in business, and winning in love. So brands started leaning into the formula: joint campaigns, share social media content, public appearances together, even coordinated sponsorships designed around the relationship itself. In other words, romance quietly becomes marketing strategy. But the strategy carries a structural weakness, because the moment a relationship becomes part of the brand story, it also becomes a part of the risk profile. And this is where economics of modern sports branding gets uncomfortable, because domestic turmoil doesn't behave like normal public relation problems. It doesn't stay contained inside a press conference. It spills into police reports, protective orders, social media accusations, and suddenly the narrative shifts from romance to crisis. In that moment, the brand ecosystem surrounding the athlete reacts almost instantaneously. The first response is hesitation. Sponsors pause campaigns. Marketing teams reassess upcoming promotions. Executives ask the question nobody wants to answer publicly: is this partnership about to become a liability? Then the lawyers get involved, because most endorsement deals today contain morality clauses, contract language that allows companies to distance themselves from an athlete whose behavior threatens the brand's reputation. Morality clauses aren't just legal boilerplate, they're financial escape hatches. And when domestic turmoil surfaces, those clauses suddenly become very relevant. Next comes the final layer of response: crisis management. Public relations teams begin damage containment. Statements are drafted. Messaging is controlled. Media access becomes restrictive. And advisors start calculating the long-term impact on the athlete's public image. And here's the reality that often gets ignored. Once domestic conflict enters the public record, the story is no longer just about the two people in a relationship. It becomes a corporate risk event. Because when brands invest in athletes, they're investing in more than just performance. They're investing in stability. And when stability disappears, the entire marketing machine begins preparing for fallout. One of the biggest illusions in modern sports culture is the belief that athletes fully control their personal lives. On the surface, that might seem true. They control their image, their social media, their relationships. But once a personal life becomes monetized, control becomes far more complicated. Because the moment an athlete relationship becomes a part of the brand identity, a network of powerful stakeholders quietly enters the picture. First, the brand. Sponsors aren't emotionally invested in relationships. They're financially invested in reputation stability. If controversy threatens that stability, the brand's loyalty can evaporate almost overnight. Then come the agent. Agents negotiate the deal. They structure the endorsement. They protect the earning potential of their clients. And if a personal relationship begins threatening millions of dollars in contracts, agents don't see romance. They see risk. And finally, the public relationship firm. These are the architects of narrative control. They monitor headlines. They craft statements. They decide which interviews happen and which ones never do. So when turmoil erupts inside a high-profile relationship, these actors quickly move into position. Because in the economics of modern sports media, even love becomes capitalized. Relationships generate engagement. Engagement generates attention. Attention generates money. But the same system that monetizes romances also creates something else, a question of liability. And this is where the power dynamics become particularly revealing. When high-profile sports relationships collapse publicly, the reputation damage rarely distributes evenly. In theory, public opinion should focus on the facts of the situation. But media ecosystems don't operate in theory. They operate in narrative. And historically, those narratives have often been shaped by gender expectations. Men in sports have traditionally been framed as volatile competitors, aggressive, emotional, driven by intensity. So when conflict surfaces, it's sometimes absorbed into the existing cultural stereotype of the male athlete. But women in sports operate under a completely different image economy. They are often expected to represent composure, respectability, professionalism, and control. So when turmoil surfaces in a relationship involving a female athlete, the media scrutiny can take on a different tone entirely. The conversation quickly shifts from performance to personality, from achievement to character. And that shift can carry long-term consequences. Endorsement opportunities can shrink, public narratives can harden, and an athlete's brand identity can become permanently tied to the controversy. But here's the deeper reality. The sports media ecosystem doesn't just report these moments, it amplifies them. Debate shows dissect them. Social media magnifies them. Fans take sides. And the relationship itself becomes a spectacle. In the end, the original relationship becomes almost secondary. What matters most is the narrative that survives the collapse. Because in the sports influencer era, relationships don't just produce headlines, they produce leverage. And when that leverage fractures, the real power dynamics behind modern sports branding suddenly become visible in the tea leaves. When domestic turmoil enters the public conversation around an athlete, the damage rarely happens all at once. It unfolds in phases. Because in the sports business, reputation isn't just emotional, it's financial infrastructure. The first thing to shift is the endorsement portfolio. Sponsors rarely make dramatic announcements in the middle of a controversy. Instead, they quietly pause. Campaigns disappear, appearances get postponed, and renewal conversations suddenly lose momentum. This is the silent stage of brand distancing. Nothing official, but everything changing. Over the next 2 to 5 years, the athlete enters what public relations strategists sometimes call a reputation recovery cycle. Year 1 is damage containment. Statements are carefully crafted. Media access becomes limited. Agents and publicists attempt to stabilize the narrative. Year 2 is reputation recalibration. Athletes reintroduce themselves through interviews, controlled appearances, or carefully selected brand partnerships. The goal is to shift the public conversation away from the controversy and back towards performance. Year 3 through 5 determine the long-term outcome, because by that point, the market has decided something very important, whether the athlete's brand is recoverable or replaceable. Some athletes successfully rebuild their public image, performance rebounds, new sponsorships emerge, and the controversy gradually fades into the background of their career. But others never fully escape the narrative that formed during the crisis. Their identity in the media ecosystem becomes permanently linked to the incident. Not the championships, not the accomplishments, but the controversy. And that difference often comes down to one thing: how the corporate world assesses risk. Major brands don't make emotional decisions about partnerships. They use risk models, algorithms that measure public sentiment, media coverage, and long-term reputation volatility. If controversy creates too much instability, companies shift their narrative towards safer personality. Because in marketing terms, controversy introduces something sponsors hate most: unpredictability. And that's why we're likely to see morality clauses expand significantly in athlete endorsement deals over the next decade. Morality clauses allow brands to terminate contracts if the athlete's behavior damages the company reputation. They were once rare, now they are standard. And as the influencer economy grows, these clauses are becoming even more detailed. Not just criminal behavior, but social media controversy, public dispute, and increasingly relationship turmoil. Agents and publicists are already adjusting to this reality. Media training used to focus on interviews, now it increasingly includes relationship management. What to post, what not to post, how to appear together publicly, how to avoid feeding social media speculation. In other words, romance itself is becoming part of the athlete's brand strategy. And that leads to one of the most fascinating shifts in modern sports culture: the rise of the power couple as an economic unit. Two athletes, two influencers, two celebrities operating inside the same commercial ecosystem. Joint sponsorship, shared audience engagement, coordinated brand campaigns. In practical terms, the power couple begins to function almost like a company, an entity that generates revenue, an entity that manages risk, an entity that must protect its public reputation. In the near future, we may see this model formalize even further. Couples building shared production companies, joint brand portfolios, shared media ventures, financial structures that treat the relationship itself like a corporate partnership. In other words, the power couple becomes something very familiar in business terms: an LLC. And once relationships become financial structures, their collapse becomes something else entirely. Not just heartbreak, but brand liquidation. Because in the influencer era, love may start as emotion, but once the cameras arrive, it becomes capital. In the influencer era, love used to be personal, now it's profitable. Relationships generate engagement. Engagement generates visibility, and visibility generates money. But the moment love becomes part of the brand, it also becomes part of the risk portfolio. Because the same system that monetizes romance has no patience for instability. Sponsors want certainty. Leagues want quiet headlines. Brands want marketable narratives. And when turmoil enters the picture, the system moves quickly to protect the business. So the real lesson for modern athletes is this: when your relationship becomes content, your relationship becomes capital. And when capital becomes unstable, someone in the ecosystem will decide it's time to protect the investment. Because in the influencer economy, love may start as an emotion, but once the cameras arrive, the tea leaves reveal something else entirely. This has been Controlling Interest, PoliSports Tea Leaves. from Black Women in Sports Excellence, where we examine the intersection of sport, media, power, and economic shaping the future of athletics. If you enjoy these deep dives into the business behind the game, make sure you like, subscribe, and share the conversation. Because the biggest stories in sports are really just about what happens on the court. They're about who controls the narrative behind it. This is Political Lil. Until next time, keep watching the game, but more importantly, keep reading the tea leaves.